Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining us today for the fourth part of the Ditch the Textbook webinar series. For anyone who's been around for the first three, you guys all know that this is a way for you guys to learn actionable insights and solutions into challenges that you guys are facing. Things like retention, attracting skilled workers, building a positive brand. And specifically around those day-to-day business struggles that the textbook really doesn't provide you, knowing that a textbook is important. We're going to actually touch on why a textbook is important today, learning code and things that maybe you don't learn hands-on. You need to learn code in a textbook, but there are also things that go along with that textbook can't provide. So with all that being said, we're on 4 of 5 today. So plugging January's webinar, January 19th at noon Central, that third Wednesday. Joel Birkin will be speaking on scalability and training, so make sure you don't miss out on the last part there. My name is Elizabeth Hansen. I am a marketing campaign manager here at Interplay Learning, and I'm your moderator and host. So I'll be monitoring chat. Feel free to throw questions in the chat box, in the Q&A. We'll be making sure to comment on those throughout the webinar if they make sense in the flow. Otherwise, we'll make sure that we bring it up in the Q&A at the end. Additionally, for those of you that are maybe on your 3rd of 5 webinar today, or even your 4 of 5, thank you for sitting on the first 3. At the end of 3 of 5, you'll be receiving a $75 gift card of your choice as long as you're fully participating. So make sure to fully participate as we go through. Today, we are chatting about building your brand as a company and promoting positive feedback, specifically in how you can use a safe workforce and work environment to do that. And I think we have the perfect member to help us out here with that, and we'll get to Chad in a second. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. I know it's everyone's favorite, so I will move fast here. But all attendees will be muted for the duration of the webinar. If you do have questions, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them as we go through for sure. And then also, additionally, you will receive a webinar replay link within 24 hours of this webinar end tomorrow. So be on the lookout in your inbox for that as well. Now to the good part. So joining us today is Chad Soucy. Chad has been fortunate enough to work in several aspects of the electrical industry. He actually started out in rewiring houses with his dad and his uncle, and a lot of early experiences led him to actually become a contractor while he was rewiring apartment buildings, stores, and offices. So he's clearly got a ton of experience. He also went on to join the IBEW, and he spent a lot of time traveling throughout the US and kind of understanding and commissioning electrical systems and instruments at local refineries. He traveled for most of his career, and it has landed him as an electrical apprenticeship instructor. So he is the ideal person to talk to us about electrical safety and how it can help you build your brand in not only facets of internal company, but also external when it comes to brand promotion, and also how electrical is important in more facets of skilled trades than we can even think about at first glance. I think something that I learned from speaking with Chad so far is how much it actually bubbles over into even apartment maintenance as opposed to just general electrical when you think about electrical. So all that said, thank you for being here today, Chad.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Of course. A couple key takeaways. We're going to be talking about how to create a safety mindset, understanding the importance of safety, how we can use that to create a culture that promotes positive feedback. And then at the end of the day, good culture leads to good reviews. So we'll drop a few anecdotes on how you can use a good culture to create both internal and external positive feedback. While we get started, I would love, Chad, for you to kind of give us a more in-depth look at your background and why you're a huge advocate for safety as a training tool, as an onboarding tool, but also just as something you've seen throughout your career.
Oh, appreciate you having me on here, Elizabeth. For me, safety, electrical hazard, and reducing electric shock and arc flash has been sort of a major part of my career since 1996 when I had an arc flash event. I really had to start thinking about what I was doing and how I needed to start doing it differently, and also consider the people that I was working for and working with. So I would say I was fortunate enough to survive this arc flash event. If you were able to read the blog, it's very, it was very impactful on my life. It took out about a year and a half of my career. And for the most part, I'm better off. I think most people now in education are better off with my explanation of what happened to me. And I hope that comes across here today, because it was a major event. And for me, electrical safety, it's not just watch out for the safety guy or anything like that. It's actually being a part of the plan, understanding what I can do to better protect myself and the people I work with. So if you have any electrical appliances or anything like that, doesn't mean that you have to be an electrician. You could be involved in a process as a maintenance technician. Any of the trades, really, they're all electrical corded appliances. So therefore you need to understand the available energy. It's called incident energy, and tie yourself to the definitions with OSHA regulations: affected employee, authorized employee, a qualified person, and start building on that. Anyway,
I think that's a great indication of kind of where we're going. And for those who haven't had a chance to read that blog that Chad wrote, it is fabulous. I will actually make sure it gets sent out in tandem with this webinar tomorrow, so that you guys have an idea of, why events like this, if you are fortunate enough to not have experienced something like this, why events like this are so powerful in creating a safety culture and allowing individuals to speak up. And I think that that's something, Chad, that I have loved about speaking with you so far, is essentially your mindset on, how the safety mindset in the electrical world may not have always been, I have the ability to speak up. It's more, I'm kind of told I have to stay silent and I have to do what I need to do to get the job done, but that may not be the most effective path forward. And so I think a big focus here, as we move into the rest of this conversation, is kind of how individuals on this call can be advocates for their team to allow them to say no to opportunity or things that may be unsafe, or to speak up and feel that they're trusted and confident in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
My clicker here. So super, super impressive, like I just noted. How have you seen that kind of translate? So the safety world that we spoke about, and how that back end of, the don't talk if you see until I get it done kind of mindset from the 90s has translated into safety, moving into we must have it now. I know on Monday we spoke a little bit about how, at least in the electrical world, and I mean across all skilled trades, it's a must have, but it's not always a we know what we're talking about type situation. So how do we start building a culture where it is something we talk about and it is something that we understand?
Well, I think trust is, it's a major contributor and an indication whether or not you're successful. If you feel like you can't speak or say something at work, you're not participating, and you're probably looking for the door, to be quite honest. So, there's lots of tools out there that employers can use. There's lots of access to retain people, but trust is something that you have to build together. It's a contribution, and if you say something, you have to follow through. So, I think if employers were to set expectations and live up to them, their employees also, they look for those sort of markers. Well, what happened last time we did this? And they start seeing some sort of acceptance for a substandard behavior. And when it comes to safety, it's not acceptable.
Yeah. And I love what Kevin Johnson just put in the chat. He said, if an unsafe act is reported, lunch is brought for the reporter if it is deemed unsafe. Allowing even little things like building that culture of report it if you see something happen, because at the end of the day, it does reduce risk. It does build confidence and trust, and it allows you to engage your employees. And I think that even to what we were talking about a little bit on Monday, in seeing your students go from, the classroom or the apprenticeship room to hands-on in a live environment with live wires. It's been important to engage them in that training and mindset early so that they feel that they can speak up. And I love seeing, Kevin, your company talking to even building that mindset even further. Like, we're promoting you speaking up.
That's the company I want to work for too.
Me too.
Where Kevin works. So,
me too.
And that's why I think the young people, they want to put their lives at risk. That why would they?
Yeah.
And who's right?
It goes to the skills gap, which I know everyone on here is probably like, oh, we've been beat down on the skills gap, but it comes to that attraction and retention piece of, how do I not only attract workers who have come from a safe learning environment and have been given all of the training and technology to learn how to be safe in an environment, to then attract them to my company, but not only attract them, retain them when they're going on calls and being confident and having less callbacks because they're, working more effectively, more efficiently, and more safely. But all of that stems from, I also have to be starting at the top. I have to be promoting that as a business owner or as an L&D professional in an apartments maintenance situation, where I'm promoting the aspect of, I want you to be safe. I want you to learn. I want you to train. So I'm going to make sure that happens. So I think that's really cool. And I wanted to make sure that Kevin got a shout out for that. Cool. So kind of to transition back into more of the like technician side of it, as opposed to the business, and then we'll move back to the business side for everyone on here. How have you seen it help a technician's confidence when it comes to working safely, when they're given like the opportunity to have safety training more extensively, or, maybe in an apartment world or a facilities maintenance world where someone didn't get to go through a full apprenticeship, they were picked off the street and have been through an onboarding process? How have you seen like that risk reduction, that confidence, and that engagement project, those individuals to more successful skilled trades careers?
It's probably an excellent mining ground, and it gives the person a chance to kind of explore what their interests are and what they're willing to do to expand their career. If I was an employer looking for somebody with some hands-on experience, I would probably take from that group, and if they had any practical training as far as a pre-employment program or something along those lines, sometimes there's dual credit programs in local areas, so that kind of exposes what a young person or trainee is interested in, and they're willing to invest in it. So attention to detail can be easily seen and practiced, but it's more or less the nonverbal cues that the person's actually giving you. You can pick right up on it. It's amazing when you know what to look for. So a lot of communication is nonverbal. I know everything here is mostly verbal. I
feel like a lot of it is nonverbal too, as we even communicate via virtual. But I think that's something that has been a piece of the new world, is learning how to learn in a more virtual environment for people my age, and learning how to take that into the skilled trades, which is a very hands-on profession and is a very essential profession. But how does that translate? And I know we're getting a little off topic here, but it is also part of, building a culture and promoting positive feedback, is how do you then bring that technology into pushing things forward more quickly from a geographical standpoint, from a training standpoint.
I'm thinking it's more of an agreement. It's more of a discussion between the two parties. So, there's common triggers that the employers, they're looking for, and the employee doesn't even necessarily know they're interested in that employer, sort of things, but they find the alignment once they start gauging their interest. I think a lot of it comes from word of mouth. Social media is probably the word of mouth for young people nowadays. I don't want to speak for young people, but
you can speak for me. It is definitely my word of mouth.
Right. Somebody says, "Hey, it's good over here." That's enough information right there for a young person to get interested, and then they start seeing how they align, and they're kind of taking their resume that's not written anywhere. It's just like, yep, this is good, and I think the reputation of the employer is more out there, whereas the young person's, they're able to kind of get their information readily from social media. I'm not saying it's on an app or anything like that. I'm just saying in a group forum chats and things like this. I think they're easily able to determine what fits them best. And I think that makes sense. That why shouldn't they have what works for them? And also totally. The employer, it kind of cuts down all the blank resumes, and maybe they make that connection a little bit neater.
Yeah, totally. Everyone, in the chat, feel free to sound off on how you've seen technology either help or hurt your attraction and retention capabilities when it comes to skilled workers, because I know that is a big part of building your brand. So that's a big part of what we're talking about today, is how a learning culture and a safety culture and a culture of trust from your technicians, from like those maybe lower level, first step greener employees that want to get into the industry, how they need to see that so that they can stay and want to stay with you, see that you're promoting them and starting at the top and building that culture. Because at least from the way that I look at how I go from job to job, I think that it's a big part of the internal culture as opposed to just the external culture. Obviously, the external culture helps your company grow from a revenue standpoint, but the internal culture helps your company not lose revenue from a retention standpoint. So I'd love to hear anyone has any kind of pieces of knowledge where they've seen that actually happen in their own business. But I think some of the ways that we've discussed on how you can start building that internal culture of not only safety, but positive feedback is obviously it starts at the top. We need management to be involved. We need clear onboarding and we need clear trust. Do you have any pieces where you think like, I've seen this for my students when they first onboarded at a XYZ company that could be improved from an onboarding process to help them garner that trust and confidence?
So my experience with different levels of the apprenticeship, I can kind of tell if the student is better suited for maintenance or construction. So for me, that's a big point. So I can help communicate to the person, because they're looking for things or ways to maintain or understand, analyze. So there's a little different practices that goes into building a maintenance person versus building an installation or construction person, or helping them build their careers. Not me building, it's them building. But so what I see mostly is there's more employment opportunities in construction. And so a lot of the maintenance type of people that have the analytical kind of get trapped into, not trapped, but kind of get started into a construction apprenticeship.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not to take away from construction. It's just there's more jobs in construction, or seems to be, because once a facility's built, people basically move on, and it takes a high volume or number of people to build something in a short period of time, and then it makes sense they move on. Sometimes they stay behind to facilitate maintenance in the property, which is kind of cool, because that person then says, I know everything about this place. I want to keep it running for the next 10 years or whatever. And so the scenario that I see at school is watching the person trying to hang on or finish the construction portion. And then there's an opportunity that they transfer into the maintenance of analyzing and different, I'd say, more critical thinking.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not really maybe that gotcha, but it's, for me, it's really important. I can just see it. They don't even have to say anything, and you can tell just by if you're going through the process of a lab, you're building something, and the person puts his hands in his pocket, or he puts it behind his back, or one hand behind their back or on their hip, and they put their other hand on their face or chin. It's just blows me away every time I see it, because one person building something, another person analyzing something. It doesn't mean that they're not capable of both. It's just
it shows you,
blows me away.
It shows you where their mindset is at and how they fit into a densely wide career field. And that's what I thought actually gives me a backtrack to Tim Smith's webinar back in October. For any of y'all that saw it, he spoke a lot to how many different ways there are to get into the industry. I mean, there were niche things that I didn't even think about, like how many HVAC units are on a cruise ship. Wow. So it kind of shows you from a business standpoint where that competition is coming from. But also, I thought something that Tim said that was really interesting was talking about how he didn't necessarily want to build like HVAC technicians. He wanted to build problem solvers, because at the end of the day, a good HVAC technician or a good technician in the maintenance world is a good problem solver. And I think that comes full circle into kind of what you were saying too, is you as an instructor see where that problem could be solved more effectively by each student. Yep.
And I remember back when I was in the field, I remember the younger guys that seemed to want to know more, but the situation didn't really call for wanting to know more critically. It was just like, screw it to the wall, fasten it in place, kind of stick to the part where you're making money, not more of the discussion part, but you have to kind of, they go hand in hand. So which, there's trust, there's loyalty, brand building. It's all in there. It's all in that little part, but you still have to make money at the end of the day. You have to build something or fix something. So depending on what you're doing, it's so broad. And Tim, I got lots of respect for him. Tim and Frank, they're great.
Yeah, so they've been awesome throughout this process too. So if you guys have missed those ones, they're a good watch to go back and watch again to plug just some really fascinating information that I feel like I've learned a ton. But also, Chad, I loved that transition into actually having your company make money. So how do we use all of this to actually benefit our business? Like, how do we use this training to benefit our business? And I know on Monday, we were talking a story about how I live in an apartment. You're not seeing it in the background right now. I'm actually in the office, but I live in an apartment. And a couple months back, I actually had a minor flood in my apartment, and it was on a weekend. So I was concerned because we don't have maintenance on the weekends typically, unless it's emergency maintenance. Luckily, we have a fabulous maintenance team where I live, and they were able to come fix the problem, and were very communicative about what they were doing and fixed it fast and did it safely and thought about those electrical practices that we were talking about, where maybe you don't think about the fact that you need to turn off a live wire situation when you're working with a water breakdown, because that could cause a huge fire or a huge other situation that wouldn't be fun. But I appreciated from the external feedback that I was communicated with quickly, that my problem was fixed quickly, that I knew what was going on. And at the end of the day, I left a really positive review for my apartment because the maintenance team was so awesome. And I think that that is something that a lot of people maybe don't give enough credit or don't think about to the maintenance team of places that you live at. Like a lot of times it's like, oh, it's the amenities, but no, it's really not the amenities. It's the people that take care of the facilities that you're living in. And so I think from my perspective, I firsthand wrote a positive review based on a good safe practice and a good callback from a maintenance technician in my apartment. But do you have anything that you can maybe add from stories you've seen there too?
When I had a business, it was in the 90s, but I used to have a formula, which I would try to get roughly 15% of my business from maintenance. And those are I call them my bread and butter customers. You know, I don't have a business now. That was a while back. And I often tell people, you know, they can, you know, think even when times are good, they should still maintain some percentage of maintenance customers, especially managers. So managers at malls and shops and offices, they live at places. And if you look after them at their home, they're going to remember you. Or I took it as they were going to remember me. I did all types of office buildings and restaurants and things. And, you know, my business model was always, you know, come through for the client, you know, do a good job, fair pricing, things that a lot of businesses say or try to live up to. But I went a little deeper and I thought, these people, the maintenance of their homes, you know, that's really what they care about the most. And if they trust me in their homes, they'll trust me at their jobs. And there wasn't social medias and all these things, you know, there was nobody
it amplifies that news even more now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, it's just like
good or bad. So you'd rather it be good.
100%. I just think that word of mouth is still the most, you know, beneficial type of advertising. And it's just done a little differently now. It's done with your thumbs and, you know, on your keyboards. But, you know, I try not to leave any bad comments, but I mean, there is some bad service out there. So it does happen. So if you can, you know, live up to your name, your brand name, and your employees with a solid culture that you're backing them, they know that they're safe, they can trust you. I mean, if you're not willing to do something, why would you expect somebody else to do it? That was kind of my internal model, you know, kind of made me a little bit of a doormat too, because, you know, I'm always doing a lot of the I guess the work that late hours or, you know, but I was never afraid to do any of the dirty work, you know, climbing under the basements, you know, I don't know what
the Polaroid pictures Frank spoke to back in the
digging
last
the
webinar.
holes. Yeah.
With my aesthetic Polaroid camera instead.
You would have had to get me on a Polaroid, that's right.
Yeah.
Digging holes. I mean, in general, like, you know, like electrical maintenance is pretty light work, but you know, there's a lot to consider. So you have to think back to the OSHA regulations, affected employee, and you know, there's people there that they're managing these buildings, they could be affected. I give you just a simple takeaway here. If I was to be called at night to come to your apartment building because there was a problem with a lighting circuit, all right? Now, if I was to just start turning off circuit breakers, meaning putting other circuits, other lighting circuits out so you can't see, that would be an unsafe situation that I am creating. So a simple act by it doesn't have to be an electrician, just it can be a maintenance person, it can be anybody. They have to understand what they're doing, and they can't leave the place worse off than when they got there. I think that's your example where they brought in enough people to facilitate your problem, and you were rather happy, so you left them a good comment. So I always like those great, I like those great stories, but when it comes down to the safety, if I shut the lights off in a stairwell and somebody was in the middle of walking down those stairs, maybe
That's a really good point.
To fall just because I decided to start flicking circuit breakers looking for the problem that I wasn't sure. So you have to bring a little more to the table when considering maintenance, electrical maintenance. You have to consider OSHA and maybe past experience. You have other people that your employee or you have a team that you work with. They'll have established practices that you can trust, and then they will trust you. That's the confidence piece, and the profitability will come when you put it all together like a big bag of ingredients. The profitability is definitely why we're all going to work.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, why would you otherwise? But I think that also is really interesting kind of to transition into what we were talking about on Monday, where, maybe some of the individuals on this call aren't as hands-on in maintenance. Like maybe they're more of a learning and development professional. Maybe they're a property management professional that doesn't necessarily have hands-on in a call situation, but needs to have that aspect of, I know what's going on. So a stair situation where we're flicking the lights and someone falls down the stairs doesn't happen. Or if something did happen and I am responsible for it because I am, the qualified individual on staff, what does that mean? And so could you speak a little bit to almost that need for an individual who, maybe isn't hands-on to know too?
When a call comes in, I mean, it's just written down and it's transmitted through text or email or a direct phone call. But there's a lot of information in that little snippet. So, and the call could be a sort of a pre-status for what the issues can be. So I know the assessment of the staff goes into that call as well. So they kind of determine who's available and when they can get there and so on. But that person, I don't think gets the the sort of attention that they deserve when it comes to the position that they're in. So they're in a position where they could really structure a positive solution or outcome for that client. And I'm not saying that they don't already. I'm talking about that next step. And that next step is just having that person a little more trained and more informed. As far as the electrical goes, there's electrical maintenance, which means if that person were to have trained on OSHA 10, OSHA 30, or NFPA 70E, the unqualified electrical person, that would give that person enough access to assess the problem and be able to discuss a better, more positive outcome, safer outcome for the employee, which should be talked about afterwards as well. So it's not, I think you mentioned the post or the wrap up, the feedback. There's not enough emphasis on that post conversation. I know everybody has them, but they have them informally to their friends. Oh, this is what happened to me today, and it's like gold to the employer if you could just bring it back to the meeting, to get that time. I know it's not always easy, but and you only want to top the net last one that you had, but there should be a little more communication on that. And I think the person that intercepts the call, whether it's the employer or somebody on behalf of the employer, transmitting the information about the client situation for better, for lack of better words, a troubleshooting call. If they were to get a little bit of insight as far as the electrical incident energy, because everything that's an appliance is electrical appliance is connected to the utility. So therefore there's the incident energy. So just getting a little bit of insight on that and developing a safe working plan, and having the person that's actually taking the calls be a part of that, I think is a big step up, a big boost to anybody's company. And I think profitability as well. So, and it lends to the culture. It says I'm in a safety culture here. I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Not distance. I'm in it too. I'm in it with you.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, I am a working moment for that, because the number one thing when that individual came into my apartment that I was concerned about was, there's a little bit of water. Obviously, it could start trickling into the apartment below me, or it could damage some of the things in my apartment. But I'm more concerned about me and my dog getting electrocuted. And so the fact that they came in and mitigated that situation quickly was the main reason I had a positive experience.
Sounds positive to me.
Yeah, didn't get electrocuted. So we're all good now. But thank you for that. I think that helps us kind of come full circle on why I thought this was a really important topic to touch on and, highlight as we move into a new year when, maybe we're reassessing what safety practices and training we're adding to our tech stack, if you will, and how word of mouth has only expanded that because of technology and social media and the ability to have fast information at your fingertips, not only from a brand feedback perspective, but also from a training perspective. Like, I know that with the skills gap, attraction and retention are huge issues. So technology helps build that bridge using Tim Smith language to get people up to competency 50 times faster. But how have you seen that, in your own classroom affect things?
Well, I think it's awesome. Ever since I've seen Interplay's 3D or anything 3D simulation VR, I'm just blown away. I always look back to if I had better training, this would be it. But I couldn't even conceive any of this stuff when I was training. I was lucky if I could get a crumb thrown down to me from somebody that, I respected or whatever as a journeyman electrician. They didn't really dole out the information. They were pretty tight-lipped. And I'm not sure why, it was that way. It could be just my own situation, but
or just people being competitive.
Yeah, like there's
some aspect of some sales involved when it comes to any business, but especially in the skills trades, when you have a call that you're taking and you want to be the person making the commission on that.
True. Yeah. When it comes to this, the technology piece, I'm just so blown away and happy for the younger people. It might be a little bit much because of it's just like what stream to plug into, and then once you're plugged in, how do you get
How do
stuff
you,
that's actually relevant or whatever to the day-to-day. Like they've got a lot of material to sort through.
yeah,
But
I feel personally attacked by that because, spending time on TikTok instead of other things I should be doing.
okay, yeah, I know screen time is real important and people are competing for it, and I don't spend like a ton of time on the screen personally, but I do make time for any of the stuff. I find it all relevant because I think I want to be able to communicate with this generation in my classroom, and I feel like I got to up my game all the time, but not everybody's like wanting the same thing. So it's nice to see that
There's
the
options.
conversation goes, the conversation could go in any direction, and I know it's going to end up in this format, the 3D, the simulation. I mean, if I the in my classes that I have right now, the labs, if you're not available for labs because just you're told to stay home or you're sick or something like that, well, the idea of makeup labs, there's less and less time to get that opportunity. When I think about these simulations, they could easily handle the quality of the labs that we're producing and in class or in person. But it's more of a time thing. I think they actually shorten the amount of time and improve the outcome. So I don't know if other people are seeing it exactly the same way, but that's the way I see it. But everybody's different.
I agree. And to kind of bring it to Tim Smith's comment too, is he even used it or technology in his classroom as a tool to like notice maybe who was a little bit more of a safety risk from a student perspective before they got onto a hands-on machinery. And he was able to focus in his time on someone who might need a little bit more help, as opposed to another student who really had it and, was ready to go and ready to get on the machines. And so I thought that was an interesting note too, is like, it gave him time to be the mentor he wanted to be.
That, now that you say that, so I have different classes, but that is exactly what I use for one of my classes in Iowa. Is
cool.
Yeah, that is exactly what happens. You're safer. Nothing can really go wrong, and you get the chance to work with the students. So he's 100% right, which he's fantastic anyway.
He's a rock star, but y'all all are rock stars. That's why I love having these conversations. But I know we are at the end of our little bubble here of scheduled time. So I will start wrapping up in terms of prepping y'all to make sure that you join our January webinar. And then we'll make sure we get to a few of the questions that came through for anyone that can stick around a little bit longer. But I just wanted to first and foremost say thank you for sticking around with us. We had a great December here and hope you have a happy holiday season as we go into it. And do think about how maybe we can enhance a learning and safety culture in our businesses just to promote positive feedback, both internally and externally. And I really want to thank Chad for his knowledge today. I feel like I learned a ton too. So I hope everyone else did as well. To plug January one more time, it will be the third Wednesday of the month. Joel Birkin, a Success Academy expert, will be talking to scalability and training and how you can really utilize training to not only scale your business from a brick and mortar standpoint, but also from an individual standpoint and from a profitability standpoint from reduction of callbacks. So it should be a really good one in January too. But secondary to that, I want to make sure that anyone that can stick around gets to hear a few of the questions that came through, and anyone that we don't get to, we'll make sure that we send out email info for you guys tomorrow as well. But one of the questions that we did get from Kelsey is, what is your advice to start implementing a more open forum when it comes to talking about safety in the workplace? Unfortunately, we don't all work for Kevin's company, but how do we go about starting to implement that if we don't?
I'm sorry, I was saying thank you to, I'm watching the feeds come in and kind of blown away. We get so many people here.
I
That's
know.
awesome.
Totally.
Well, can you repeat that? I'm
Absolutely.
sorry.
You're fine. So Kelsey asked a question essentially is like, what is your advice to start implementing a more open forum when it comes to talking about safety in the workplace? I know we can't all be Kevin's company, unfortunately, but how do we start to become more like Kevin's company?
Well, I think we're kind of caught into a stick and carrot scenario. So we're trying to move away from the stick and the carrot and move more into autonomy and purpose. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So if you can think of a new operating system, that's the way I think of it. The old carrot, stick and carrot, if you do something good, you get the carrot. If you do something bad, you get the stick. So that's what a lot of people are still running on. And the young people are like, we ain't doing this. So, and they're right. I never did it either, but I got the stick quite for lack of better words. So autonomy means basically, I think the piece where Elizabeth was saying, build confidence. So if somebody's able to participate, you're able to structure something that that they're able to do. Take the time to get their understand what they got from doing the task, and don't underrate the safety piece. The safety piece is going to be your most valuable. To extract that at that time and build a culture. If you've got one right now that you're not happy with, now's the time to start building one. So your people will inform you of your culture, whether they stay or they leave. There's information there, but you have to be open to seeing it. Don't look at it like, oh, it's all bad, because the person left. Look at it like, hey, maybe I should call a person and find out what I did wrong. Because going around thinking you did everything right is not going to get you anywhere. You got to bend a little bit. You got to say, hey, maybe I didn't do something right. Right? Doesn't mean that there's a pound of flesh waiting for anybody here. It just means that you're open and you're trying to set your sights on this new workplace, the new culture, this new business and operating model. So the model has to be built around a culture, and unfortunately businesses, that doesn't come in any sort of prepackaged plan that you just open up, like Amazon sent you or something like that. Yeah, it's also the fun piece. Like you can say, hey, I built this. And when you're saying I built this, you're not just saying you built something that fits in a box. You're saying I built something that is very tangible. It's built around my employees and my clientele. And you did it more or less with your actions, with following through. Culture isn't something that's easily built, but it's easily taken away.
Agreed. And I think that is actually a really great stopping point for us. We do have a few more questions that we'll get to you guys after this, but I don't want to hold you guys hostage, if you will. I do want to end on one sentiment that Kevin actually ended on for us. He says, I always tell my technicians why safety, because you are someone's superhero. And I think that is a amazing facet for why the skilled trades are so important. And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to end on it. Thank you, Chad, for being here. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining today. I feel like this was a really great chat, and I look forward to the next one, guys.